Part 17. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 161. It turns out that the girl wants to practice carving. These are all waste materials. You can take as much as you want. He cannot buy or sell the jadeite stones in the workshop, but he can dispose of these unwanted waste stones as he pleases. Although Eunuch Lu wanted to give it to Ling Chu couldn't take it for free. However, in order to avoid suspicion, she did not dare to give more, so she asked Xiaji to take 2 taels of silver to Eunuch Lu. But Eunuch Lu refused to take it alive or dead. Seeing that Eunuch Lu and Xiaji had to give in for a long time for 2 taels of silver, Ning Chui and the others were really speechless. Although Ning Chui didn't know why Ling Chu wanted to buy a few scraps, seeing that she really wanted it, he had no choice but to help her persuade Eunuch Lu to accept the money. Eunuch Lu had no choice but to accept only 5 cents. Eunuch Lu, if the jade is found, the emperor will definitely give you a reward. But I want to ask the emperor for 2 pieces of jadeite as a reward. I wonder if I can choose from the workshop. Don't worry, father-in-law, I will report this to the emperor and won't embarrass you. When Eunuch Lu heard that Ning Chui also wanted the jade stone, he immediately said with a smile on his face, "It is our workshop's honor that you would like to pick the jade stone as a reward from our workshop. Whatever you want, just pick it." Given how much the emperor values Mr. Ning, let alone asking for 2 pieces of jadeite as a reward, the emperor would not have any objection even if Mr. Ning had to leave the entire workshop. Ning Chui was not polite. "Then I'll thank you. My lord, you are very polite. Please follow me to the warehouse to select." Although Ling Chu was also curious that Ning Chui would choose the jadeite as a reward, the warehouse of the workshop was an important place, so it was not easy to follow him to see it. Seeing that they were far away, Xiaodao's ghost dared to float over. There was an aura about Ning Chui that made him odd. Before, he only dared to stand silently and watch from a distance. Xiaodao floated up to Ling Chu, knelt down and kowtowed, "Thank you very much, miss, for helping me expose Gong Ping's crime. I'm so kind, I can only repay it in the next life." Ling Chu did not refuse and accepted his gift. He glanced at the body placed by the lake and asked, "Does your body need to be buried?" After death, people have to return to their roots, and Xiaodao naturally thought, "What I want is that I want to be buried with my family. I wonder if I could trouble the girl to find someone to transport my body back to my hometown." Perhaps he was afraid that Ling Chu would refuse due to the long journey, so Xiaodao said hurriedly, "I asked Master Tian to keep the monthly money for me. I will trouble the girl to find him to get the money, and then hire some people from Yizhuang to take my money. Just transport the body back to your hometown for burial. Apart from the money for hiring people and funeral arrangements, the rest will be given to the girl as a thank you gift." Ling Chu originally wanted to help Xiaodao's puppet fulfill his wish, so naturally he would not refuse him. Xiaodao's body could not stay in the workshop forever. Ling Chu immediately asked Xiaji to find Master Tian and get the money. He also went to Yizhuang to hire a few people to buy coffins, shrouds and other things, collect the body, and then transport it away. Xiaodao thanked Ling Chu profusely and kowtowed several times. Ling Chu received the merits rewarded by the system and finally calmed down his restless soul. But this was far from enough. She had to find ways to accumulate more merit as soon as possible in order to maintain the vitality of this body. It's just that she just woke up today and she really can't hold on any longer. She has to go back home and take a nap before going to the street to set up a stall and tell fortunes. Ling Chu took Xiaji out of the workshop, and as soon as they got on the carriage, the window was knocked. Xiaji lifted the car curtains, and Ling Chu saw Ning Chui standing next to the car. Just when I was about to ask him if he was okay, I saw him handing 2 stones to me. "Don't you want the jadeite? Take it. This is your reward." Ling Chu didn't expect that he asked Eunuch Lu for this jadeite to give it to her. He shook his head and said, "No need. Your Excellency just bought me 3 pieces from the workshop." The system absorbed his jade pendant. Ling Chu originally didn't want to mention it anymore, for fear that if Master Ning asked why the jade pendant disappeared, she wouldn't know how to answer him. But after a moment of hesitation, he still said bravely, "Besides, before I came here, I had already taken your lord's jade pendant as a reward. I can't ask for these 2 pieces of jade anymore, so please take them back." Ning Chui glanced at the 3 pieces of material in her hand and said with disgust, "Throw away your 3 pieces of broken stones quickly. The jade pendant and these 2 pieces of jadeite are all rewards for you." Su did not want to listen to her any more, rejecting. Ning Chui put the 2 pieces of jade directly into the carriage, turned around and told Yin Sha, "Send Miss Ling back." Before Ling Chu could refuse, Ning Chui had already led his men and rode away. Seeing her frowning, not knowing what to do with the 2 pieces of jade, Yin Sha, who had always been taciturn, finally spoke, "Girl, there is no need to be embarrassed. Since I gave it to you, you can keep it with peace of mind. It's just 2 broken pieces, Shitu, my lord is not short of money. Besides, this thing is nothing compared to my lord's official position." Ling Chu smiled bitterly in his heart. Although she helped Ning Chui, the reward was indeed a bit expensive. The system spent a lot of energy to protect her life. Although these emeralds were not much, they could still be of some use. In her current situation, she can only accept Lord Ning's kindness and find a way to repay him in the future. Yin Sha saw that Ling Chu had accepted the jade, so he sent her back in a carriage. Ling Chu quickly fell asleep in the carriage. Xiaji and Lu Xiangju looked at her pale face and felt uneasy. Both of them were afraid that she would fall asleep again. After the second prince left the workshop, he went straight to the most famous restaurant in Kyoto, Cyclamen. After drinking a bottle of wine, the second prince became more and more angry as he thought about it. What was originally a sure thing ended up falling short in the end. I was really unwilling to fail to remove that Ning Chui from the position of commander. If it weren't for that girl Ling, he wouldn't have failed. The second prince said to the guards standing by, "Go and kill that Miss Ling. It is not a pity for such a person to die if he dares to ruin his important mission." Ling Chu was sleeping deeply when suddenly there was a sound of fighting in her ears. She knew something was wrong and hurriedly forced herself to wake up. As soon as she opened her eyes, a sharp arrow passed through the carriage and shot straight towards her. Xiaji and Lu Xiangju rushed toward Ling Chu at the same time, trying to protect her. Ling Chu was startled and quickly pressed down the 2 maids with one hand. The sharp arrow barely grazed her bun and shot out from the other side of the carriage. Yin Sha was fighting with someone outside the carriage. Perhaps he noticed the movement in the carriage and hurriedly asked, "Miss Ling, are you okay?" "I'm fine." As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, he saw another sharp arrow shoot through the carriage and fly towards him. The anger in my heart suddenly increased. With a thought, he summoned a hammer and shovel from the system. Ding! The big shovel just appeared and immediately blocked the sharp arrow. The arrow was immobilized, the shovel moved aside, and the small hammer suddenly rushed up and struck the arrow hard. The sharp arrow immediately flew back toward the original path with a sound of breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, a scream came from outside. Thanks to Afraid Park, 2023-041-0202. Mo Yanur, Jam Kitten, Hwaji, 2017041519124369 and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Wumi Do, and Amp, Bingling and Amp, Yuan Yu, China Fuse, Cherish Life. CD, Zeng, Yangliuan, Unthinkable, Yangliuan, Kingshid Shuang, Jiangnan Fueo, Yuan Wan, Zinbao Bao, 201703181914308385, 200908811, National 114,514 Level Protected Waste, Pros. BA, Pick a Pen for the Future, Flowers, Blue Melancholy 175, Why We Grow Old, 202306016216588, 20230306195833531, Baikan, and other book friends' recommendation votes. At the same time, I would like to thank Hungziu and all the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 162. Following the big shovel, he flew out of the carriage and quickly spun around the carriage to prevent any more arrows from coming. After the small hammer flew out of the carriage, it immediately hit the knee of the nearest masked man hard. With the scream, the masked man covered his legs and fell down. After knocking down a masked man with a small hammer, he immediately changed his path and rushed towards the 5 people who were besieging Yinsha. Punch one at the knees, one at a time. In just a few breaths, the small hammer circled around and knocked them all down before the masked men could react. The scene immediately burst into wailing. Yinsha raised his sword and was so surprised that he almost couldn't recover. It originally took a lot of effort to deal with the 5 masked men with his martial arts, but the elusive little hammer actually took care of them all at once. Looking at the dents in the knees and the miserable howls that pierced the eardrums, if nothing else, the legs of the 5 people were probably useless. After the small hammer knocked down the man in black, he was still staring at them eagerly. Yinsha warned himself in his heart that he must remember not to be careless with this small hammer in the future. Even though it looks small and exquisite, even he dare not underestimate its power. With little hammer watching, Yinsha was not afraid of the 5 masked men and still dared to take action. Remembering the hidden arrow just now, I hurriedly walked in the direction and saw a man in black lying on the ground with an arrow stuck in his forehead. It is too dead to be dead anymore. But those eyes are still staring. Yinsha twitched the corner of his mouth. It seemed that the man in black was killed by the arrow he shot. He really died with his eyes open. Originally, he thought Miss Ling was a weak woman with no strength, but seeing how fast and accurate her attack was, he underestimated her. Yinsha reached out and pulled the scarf off the face of the man in black. This is a familiar face. He had seen this person beside the second prince. Just as he had guessed, the second prince was the only one who dared to assassinate someone in the street in broad daylight. At this moment, Ling Chu was sneering at the ghost rushing towards him. The arrow on this man's forehead was probably the one that assassinated her, but was knocked away by the small hammer. This man wanted to kill her in life, but he still didn't repent after death. If he doesn't know how to be a human being, then let her teach him how to be a puppet. At the same time that the man in black rushed over, Ling Chu swung the Bodhi whip in his hand and whipped him hard. This guard had just died and had no idea how powerful the whip was. It was not until he felt the pain that his soul was trembling and burning that he began to regret it. But it's too late. While he was still wailing, Ling Chu whipped him again. This servant didn't know what fear was before, but he didn't expect to know it after becoming a puppet. It hurt so much to step on a horse. It turns out that it's not that he wasn't afraid of pain before, it's just that he hasn't met anyone who can really make him feel pain. Seeing Ling Chu raise the whip in his hand again, the puppet soul was so frightened that his liver and courage trembled. Before the whip came down, he turned around and ran away with his last breath. The big shovel immediately stopped spinning and chased after the man in black. The broad shovel back slapped the man in black the back. The ghost of the man in black suddenly flew far away like a kite with its string cut off. It hit the ground with a thud. Passed out. The big shovel flew over with a swish, swooped down, and scooped up the puppet soul. He then turned around and flew back to the carriage with the puppet soul. With a bang, he threw it in front of Ling Chu. The puppet soul screamed and just woke up from the pain, and then fainted from the pain. Before he fainted, the puppet soul realized that although a person became a puppet queen, although he would not die again, it did not mean that he would not feel pain. Which of the blind eyes did he have to think that Miss Ling was a weak woman who had no power to restrain a chicken after death? The one who stepped on the horse turned out to be a female devil who was more terrifying than the murderess of Yin Sha. It's really too late to regret it? Ling Chu glanced at the unconscious puppet soul, took out a container, and sealed it. Although Yin Sha couldn't see the puppet soul, he felt the gusts of wind around him and saw Ling Chu taking out a container and sealing something. He could probably guess a little bit. At that moment, an inexplicable fear arose in his heart. It seems that you must not offend this Miss Ling in the future, otherwise you will not be able to reincarnate even if you die. At the beginning of the assassination, the surrounding people were scared away. Seeing that the men in black were dying and injured, they boldly came around and pointed. And the movement here finally attracted the attention of the officers and soldiers patrolling the city. When he saw the city patrol officers coming this way from a distance, Ling Chu put away the small hammer and big shovel, leaving Yin Sha to deal with the officers and soldiers. With a pale face, Ling Chu turned around and entered the carriage. The breath he had been holding on was released, and his mind felt dizzy. Xiaoji and Lu Xiangju hurriedly helped her sit down and poured a glass of water for her. Ling Chu took out a pill, soaked it with water, and swallowed it in one gulp. When I saw someone making trouble in the street, the city patrol officer and his men hurried over with dark faces. He was about to scold him, but when he saw Yin Sha, who was full of evil aura, the city patrol officer not only did not dare to scold him, but also had to nod and bow down with a smile on his face. Great. Not to mention that Yin Sha was still wearing the uniform of a royal guard. Even if he wasn't wearing it, none of the patrol officers would mistake his face. There were 6 assassins in total. Although they only killed one, the legs of the other 5 were disabled. They had little chance of standing up again in the future. Those assassins were sent by the second prince, and Yin Sha couldn't handle it privately. After explaining the incident in a few words, he handed over the 5 assassins and the corpse to the city patrol officer. Those assassins were wearing hoods. The officers and soldiers did not know that they were the second prince's men, so they dragged them to Dali Temple with curses and curses all the way. Not only did things go wrong, but now their legs were disabled. The 5 assassins did not dare to say that they were the second prince's bodyguards. I could only grit my teeth and endure the severe pain in my leg, as well as the curses from the officers and soldiers, and was dragged all the way to Dali Temple. They still can't believe that they were captured so easily. They originally thought that it would be an effortless thing for 6 people to kill the helpless girl. Even if they saw that the driver was Yin Sha, they didn't take it to heart. It is true that Yin Sha has great martial arts skills, but the combined skills of the 6 of them are not inferior. What's more, they had no intention of killing Yin Sha at all. As long as 5 people entangled him and the last companion killed the girl Ling, it was a sure thing. Who would have thought that the boat would capsize in the gutter? Those assassins all felt that Miss Ling was really evil. Even though she had no power to restrain a chicken, she was able to defeat 6 of them, who were highly skilled in martial arts. What the hell, they must have drunk too much yesterday, and they are still hungover. Otherwise, how could so many of them with strong martial arts skills be defeated by a weak female streamer? Although life is a mess, every time I see everyone's votes, encouragement, and reminders, it makes me know that this world is worth it. Thank you for being with me all the way. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 163. Chapter 163. The third lady's leg is broken. Thinking about it now, those assassins not only thought that Miss Ling was evil, but also the small hammer and shovel were equally weird. That small hammer looked so fragile that they could break it with just one little finger, but what was outrageous was that with their skills, they couldn't avoid its attack. What made them even more desperate was that the second prince asked them to kill Miss Ling, but they failed and they were even taken to Dali Temple with their legs broken. Based on their understanding of the second prince, not only would they not rescue them, they might even hope that they would die soon, so as not to betray him and damage his image in the eyes of the emperor and the courtiers. Yin Sha saw the city patrol officers and soldiers escorting the assassins away, and then he walked towards the carriage. Thinking of that magical shovel and small hammer, Yin Sha couldn't help but be curious. Miss Ling, your big shovel and small hammer are really powerful. You obviously don't know martial arts. How on earth did you let that little hammer smash those things? Have all the assassins been destroyed? Nothing, just a little magic. Although Ling Chu said it in an understatement, it was actually not the case. The big shovel and the small hammer are of course powerful. They were given to her as compensation after the system devoured more than 5 million jade stones. Previously, she kept it in the space because she didn't want to attract attention. Today is the first time she uses it. She hasn't fully figured out what function this shovel has. It was only today that she discovered that this shovel could not only be used to protect herself, but also be used to deal with ghosts. That little hammer may not look vulnerable, but its smashing ability is actually very strong. When she usually used it to smash things, she didn't even use 10% of its power. If someone comes to assassinate her again in the future, she can let the small hammer smash the opponent to death, and then let the big shovel dig a hole and bury them without her having to do anything, which will save trouble. It's just that the cost of use is a bit high. She had just absorbed the piece of jade that was knocked down from the rockery, so that she could control them. Even though the scrap is only as big as an egg, the jade inside is of medium quality. Yin Sha saw Ling Chu's understatement and didn't think much about it. After all, he had heard from their adults that Miss Ling's master Xianyi was a rare master. Even the emperor wanted to ask him to be a national advisor, but he refused. Xianyi, the real person, has strong magic skills. As his disciple, Miss Ling is naturally quite capable. Yin Sha's carriage drove smoothly, and Ling Chu soon fell asleep in the carriage again. When she reached the door, the two maids woke her up and helped her in. As soon as I entered the house, I met the third lady. Hey, isn't the eldest girl seriously ill and unconscious? I have never seen anyone who is nearly dying of illness and can run around just after waking up. Your illness is so casual that you feel faint as soon as you feel faint, and you feel fine as soon as you feel good. Ling Chu glanced coldly. Third aunt, is second aunt still unable to speak today? It seems that the ancestors of the Ling family really don't like women who talk too much. I advise the third aunt to pay more attention to avoid being punished by the ancestors. Ling Chu's eyes were cold. She had heard from the maid that after she passed out, the third lady ran to her yard and accused her of pretending to be sick in front of the doctors. Now he was jumping up and down in front of her face, which really annoyed her. It seems that just like the second lady, she doesn't suffer any loss and thinks that she is a soft persimmon and can be manipulated as she pleases. The third lady didn't know that Ling Chu had lost her patience and was still scolding her with a dark face. I am your third aunt after all, and you, a junior, are so disrespectful that you even mocked me as a long-tongued woman. Ling Chu used the cover of his sleeves to make a gesture with his right hand and flicked it towards the third lady. Snapped. There was a strong force, and the third lady tilted her head to the right, and then she felt the pain on her face. She was stunned for a moment before she realized that she had been slapped so hard that her teeth were almost knocked out. Smelling the smell of blood in her mouth, the third lady covered her cheeks and looked around. She didn't know who slapped her just now. Although she suspected that it was Ling Chu's hand, she thought it was impossible. After all, the disaster star was still several steps away from her. Ling Chu suppressed the smile on her lips and exclaimed, "Third aunt, why did you get slapped? Could it be that like second aunt, You were also punished by the ancestors of the Ling family. The third lady had this in mind. Uneasy, even more scared after hearing her words. Could she, like the second lady, become mute and unable to speak? Ling Chu didn't dare to speak anymore when he saw her, so he turned around and left with the two maids. Just after walking a few steps, she felt a malicious gaze coming from her back. She didn't need to look back to know that it was the third lady who was cursing her. Ling Chu sneered. It seemed that the slap just now was too light. Make another secret with your right hand and flick it backward. The third lady cursed at Ling Chu's back and prepared to go back to the yard to apply some soap on her face. Unexpectedly, as soon as he moved his feet, his body suddenly tilted, and before he could react, he fell like a dog. Hit her mouth to the ground, blood suddenly came out, and the third lady felt that her front teeth were shaking. However, these pains are not even 1/10 of those in the knee. When she fell, her left knee hit a sharp stone. The third lady was in terrible pain, and she didn't know if her leg was going to be crippled. Hearing the screams of the third lady, Ling Chu continued walking towards his yard without stopping. Lu Xiangju was a little uneasy. Girl, if we leave the third lady like this, will it cause you to be scolded? Don't pay attention to it. It just lets her know what regret is, so that she doesn't have to jump up and down like the second lady all day long. The third lady's knee was seriously injured. She won't be able to walk again for less than 3 to 5 months. If he still fails to remember his lesson and behaves in front of her again in the future, let the people in the third room get out of Ling Mansion. Ling Chu returned to the courtyard, and after drinking the health-preserving medicine, he became very angry when he thought of the good fortune that had been taken away. Since crossing over, I have worked hard to earn money and accumulate merit, and I have managed to save this small life, but who would have thought that it would be taken away from me? She didn't know who was behind the attack. She originally suspected that it was someone from this house, but it was overturned again. She knew that the people in the Ling Mansion were not happy with her because of her fate, and perhaps privately they wished she would die early. But except for her, no one else in the Ling family understands mysticism. Even if they want to steal her merit and luck, they don't have the ability. The person behind the scenes must be someone who also knows mystical arts. What she couldn't figure out was that neither she nor the original owner had offended other colleagues, so how could they be targeted? Ling Chu was lying on the bed, tossing and turning, but he still had no idea. He didn't know where to start if he wanted to take revenge. But if the person behind it cannot be found, no matter how much merit she accumulates, someone will still take her away. Having no idea, Ling Chu had to spend 500 taels to exchange for a counter-attack talisman from the system. She can make the backlash talisman, but it is too labor-intensive, and she is unwilling to waste her pitiful energy. Another reason is that she is interested in the double superposition function of the system's counter-attack talisman. Thanks to the boy who loves reading historical novels for the reward of 800 starting coins. Thanks to Long Mao 0, Long Nanyan, 160128020530354, the boy who loves reading historical novels and other book friends for their monthly votes. Thanks to Pros. B.A. by Yanlu Milu, asterisk carat. Carat O carat asterisk, Yuan Yu, China Fuse, 201703181914308335, Blue Melancholy 175, Zheng, Yangliuan, 202303061958333531, Yuan 1, 202110221207411050, Hung He Hanlian, 202306261108181880, National Level 114,514 Protected Waste, MRS. 10, Hong, 200908111, Tip of the Future, Jiangnan Fueo, 1204021853444862, Reader 1691305910693593088. The heartbeat on the left, I can't think of it. The white clouds in the sky L, Xiaoying, 609,325, colorful world, 140212184021428, strokes, XXC, 2020022618095125. 202304281115555836, 160112191722574, Infinite Xiantianyu. 854-729, Zhen Dazhuang, Jamao Shao Immortality, Why We Grow Old, supported by book friends such as Yi Lai. Thanks to Xiaoxiang's book friends for their support. Thanks to the book friends who support Hongxiu Tianxiang. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 164. Chapter 164. The old puppet gets up. Ling Chu redeemed himself a counter-attack talisman from the system, but felt that it was still not safe enough. He simply bit his index finger and used the blood to cast two spells based on his birth date and name. One protects you, the other attacks you. If the people behind her dare to rob her of her merits and luck in the future, they will definitely suffer backlash and will either die or be injured. After holding on and casting the spell, Ling Chu felt a little relieved. Ling Chu could no longer hold on and fell asleep on the bed. Xiaoji and Qiuju saw that she was still getting up, so they quietly went into the bedroom and checked several times. They saw that she was sleeping peacefully. They wanted her to sleep a little longer, but they were afraid that she would not wake up. The two maids became more and more anxious as they waited. Fortunately, Ling Chu finally woke up as it was almost past midnight. Even though he had slept for such a long time, Ling Chu's face still looked extremely bad. My body has not recovered yet, and the method I did yesterday was too mentally draining. After washing up and eating some food, Ling Chu decided to set up a stall again. Merits will not fall from the sky. If she doesn't work hard to find a solution, her little life will not last a few days and she will have to see the Lord of Hell. The two maids were worried about her health and could not persuade her, so they followed her to set up a stall. When we arrived at Yuja, we had just set up the tables and chairs when a haggard-looking woman walked over. Ling Chu took a closer look. Wasn't this the woman who often had water leaking out of the kitchen at home? She ignored the other party and sat down on the chair calmly. The woman saw her cold attitude and was dissatisfied, but she did not dare to show it. Instead, she said with a smile, "Xiang, you have come to set up a stall again. I have been waiting for you for several days." Ling Chu didn't finish his words, he just hummed softly. The woman's smile froze for a while, then she raised her hand and took out a few strings of copper coins from her purse, and handed them over with a smile on her face. "Xiang, the last time I came to you for fortune telling, I was short of money and I only gave you 20 coins for the fortune telling. I sent you the remaining money." Ling Chu did not refuse and gave the copper coins to Lu Xiangju to keep. The woman kept her eyes fixed on the copper coins, which made her heart aching, but she did not dare to say anything. Seeing that Ling Chu had accepted the money but still ignored her, the woman was angry, but thinking of what had happened recently at home, she had to force herself to suppress her anger. She smiled again and said, "Xiang, my kitchen has been flooded 3 times. Not only did half of the wall burnt down the day before yesterday, but most of the firewood shed at home also burned down." Ling Chu frowned. This shouldn't be the case. In the past few days, your kitchen has been burned 3 times, and it's getting worse and worse. I asked you to seal the kitchen door last time and build a new one. Build another wall to block the hut, didn't you do it? Seeing that she had hit the mark as soon as she opened her mouth, the woman blushed and said, "I've never seen it done like this before. It's really too troublesome. I thought maybe I'd be more careful in the future and things would get better gradually, So I didn't follow the fairy's instructions, follow the instructions to do it. Ling Chu was really speechless. Seeing that the woman's yintang was a little darkened and she had some evil aura on her body, she sighed and asked, "Did you do anything else in the kitchen?" The woman's face changed, she looked hesitant, she wanted to say something but didn't. Ling Chu felt impatient. "I see something is wrong with you. If you don't make it clear, if something happens again, don't blame me." The woman was startled. "Is there something wrong with me? No way, I didn't do anything. I just bought a yin-yang bagua mirror from a Taoist priest and put it in the kitchen." The Taoist priest said, "Hang up the mirror, it can resolve the evil spirits in my home without making any other modifications. You hang the bagua mirror in the kitchen, then your kitchen is flooded, it's really not unfair." The woman was shocked and angry. "So the leak in my kitchen was caused by the bagua mirror? That dead Taoist priest turned out to be a liar. If I see him again next time, I will definitely cut him into pieces. There's nothing wrong with the bagua mirror, but it can't resolve any evil spirits. The Taoist priest didn't ask you to put the mirror in the stove, right?" The woman's face was solemn. "That's not true. The Taoist priest asked me to put it in the stove. Outside the room. But I thought it would get damaged easily if left out in the wind, sun, and rain, so I put it inside the kitchen." Ling Chu almost laughed angrily. "The kitchen in your house was not built right, and you even put the bagua mirror in it. Not only will this not resolve the problem, it will also gather evil spirits. I'm lucky that your house didn't burn down." The woman looked dejected and said, "To be honest with Fairy Aunt, I have already regretted it. If I had listened to you earlier, my grandson would not have been frightened by the fire and talked nonsense. Fairy Aunt, if I had rebuilt it according to what you said last time, I wonder if the kitchen can still dispel evil spirits." Ling Chu sighed. "It's hard to say. You hung the bagua mirror in the kitchen, and I don't know if there are any other problems. I won't know until I go to your home to take a look." The woman was overjoyed and said, "That's great. Without further ado, fairy girl, can I take you there right now?" Ling Chu nodded and asked the two maids to pack their things, get in the carriage, and follow the woman's guidance to her house. As soon as I walked to the door of the woman's house, a hoarse child's voice suddenly came from inside. "I finally got my wish, ha ha ha. It's been a long time since I ate meat and drank alcohol. From now on, I want to eat delicious food and drink spicy food every day. Old Zayatu, this is my home now. You are not allowed to set fire to my kitchen in the future. Otherwise, get out of here." Ling Chu frowned. Why did this sound make her feel so weird? Listening to the voice, it was obviously that of a child, but the words made people feel that it was that of a man. Seeing that she looked strange, the woman was a little worried and hurriedly explained, "This is my grandson. The fire the day before yesterday scared him. He has occasionally said some nonsense in the past 2 days. Please don't mind me. Are you talking nonsense because you were frightened by the fire?" But when she heard the child talking, why did she feel that he didn't look like him? Ling Chu was suspicious, but since she didn't see anyone, she couldn't say anything, so she just nodded casually. Seeing that she was not angry, the woman secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly opened the ajar door. As soon as he stepped into the yard, Ling Chu saw a boy about 5 years old, sitting carefree in the yard, gnawing on a big chicken leg in one hand and a large bowl in the other. Hearing the noise, the child turned his head and looked over. Seeing the child, Ling Chu's expression suddenly turned cold. There is something wrong with this child. When the woman saw the child, she sighed and said, "Dabeo, why are you alone at home? Where is your mother?" The child looked impatient and said in a hoarse voice, "I went out to buy groceries." "Why are you going to buy groceries again? You still have what you bought yesterday," the woman said as she walked, suddenly sniffed, and rushed towards her grandson angrily. "You are only 5 years old, how could you secretly drink your grandfather's wine, and I'm not afraid of drinking myself too much. The child's lips muttered silently, what a old woman, she's so in charge. Ling Chu's expression turned cold, and he raised his hand to open his yin and yang eyes. She saw an unshaven old puppet tightly possessing the woman's grandson. Come and comment and check in. Continue to ask for votes. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 165. You are still young and cannot drink, the woman nagged as she snatched the big bowl from her grandson's hand, turned around and walked out of the house. Ling Chu immediately stepped forward, took out a puppet-repelling talisman, and walked over. Are you going to get out yourself, or should I do it? The woman had just walked a few steps when she heard Ling Chu's cold words and turned back with a look of shock. Did this Taoist nun tell her grandson to get out? Originally, the child didn't take it seriously when he saw Ling Chu wearing Taoist robes. But now, after listening to her words, his eyes fell on the talisman in her hand and turned around. Immediately cried and rushed towards the woman, "Nah, I don't want to get out, this is my home, I don't want to get out." Seeing that he was crying sadly, the woman hurriedly coaxed, okay, stop crying, this is our family, we won't let you go, don't worry." The child's eyes flashed, and while wailing, he reached out and pointed at Ling Chu, "I don't like her, tell her to get out, and she is not allowed to come to our house." Afraid that Ling Chu would be angry, the woman quickly apologized and said, "Xiang, this is my grandson Yang Dabao." Ling Chu shook his head and interrupted her, "And who? I know this is your grandson, but he is possessed by a puppet spirit." As soon as Ling Chu said these words, the child gave her a sinister look, but And Hu didn't notice. And Hu's face changed. Before she could speak, there was a rush of footsteps outside the yard, and her daughter-in-law Wang's voice sounded at the same time, "Dabao, Dabao, why are you crying so sadly?" "Ah, mother is back." And Hu ignored her daughter-in-law and asked Ling Chu urgently, "Xiang, what did you just say?" Ling Chu knew that And Hu had clearly heard what she just said, but she couldn't believe it. "Your grandson has been possessed." "Mom, where did this Taoist nun come from? She came to our house to cheat and cheat." Huang came over angrily and shouted at Ling Chu, "Hurry up and go back to where you came from." Seeing that her grandson and daughter-in-law were trying to drive Ling Chu away, And Hu was so anxious that she said, "Ms. Huang, shut up." Mrs. Huang looked at And Hu in shock, wondering why she was scolded by her mother. "The matter is not clear, why are you anxious?" "But," Mrs. Hu interrupted her again impatiently, "it's not your turn to make the decision in this family yet. You can decide whether to expel people after the matter is clarified." Huang was dissatisfied, but after all, she was concerned that she was her mother-in-law, so she had no choice but to shut up and glare at Ling Chu angrily. And Hu turned to Ling Chu to apologize, "My daughter-in-law here is young and can't speak, so I ask Xiang not to be as knowledgeable as her." "Xiang, my grandson, he really..." Ling Chu knew that this was unbelievable, but he still nodded and said, "It's true." And Hu looked at her grandson hiding behind her daughter-in-law in surprise. She didn't believe it at first, but then she thought that her grandson had indeed been talking differently in the past 2 days. Could it be that he was really caught in something dirty? Seeing the suspicious look in her mother-in-law's eyes, Huang was angry and said, "Mom, Dabao was just frightened by the fire. He will be fine in a few days. He was not entangled with dirty things." Ling Chu was really speechless. "You still don't want to believe that your child has changed so much? Why don't you ask him? He can tell you everything about the family." Ms. Huang was still hesitating, but And Hu couldn't wait to ask, "Dabao, what's your father's name?" Yang Dabao hesitated for a long time, but couldn't say anything. Huang frowned and said, "Dabao, don't worry. Have you forgotten? Think about it slowly. Mrs. Huang still didn't want to believe it, but Aunt Hu's heart had already sunk. Dabeo, do you still remember your mother's name? Seeing that Yang Dabeo still couldn't speak, Huang couldn't help but became anxious. Dabeo, tell me quickly. You've already remembered your parents' names, so hurry up. Mom, I was so frightened by the fire that I forgot. Ling Chu was really too lazy to listen to the old puppet's sophistry and said to Huang and Aunt Hu, get out of the way, lest I hurt you later. Huang still didn't want to believe it, but Mrs. Hu pulled her away. If Mrs. Hu hadn't specifically asked someone about Ling Chu in the past few days, she might have thought like her daughter-in-law that her grandson had been frightened by the fire. But now the more I think about it, the more suspicious I become. My grandson used to like sweets, but since the fire, he has stopped eating sweets. But he likes to eat big fish and meat that he doesn't usually like, and he even secretly drank soju today. The grandson's voice was wrong, and it doesn't seem to have been caused by smoke. Ling Chu's eyes were cold. Let me ask you again, do you want to get out of here or let me do it? Mr. Huang and Aunt Hu both retreated to the side, unprotected, but the old puppet had no fear at all. Since it has already been exposed, the old man didn't bother to pretend anymore. I advise you, a young lady, to mind your own business. If not, don't blame me for being rude. This puppet soul has a strong evil spirit. Ling Chu originally thought that he was weak and would not do anything if he could. It was obvious that he had no intention of leaving on his own initiative, and raised his hand to throw the talisman away. Perhaps the puppet soul felt that the talisman was unusual, so it suddenly swung and turned around to escape. Unexpectedly, after running a few steps, he was by the rope thrown by Ling Chu. I'll give you one last chance, get out of here, otherwise you'll regret it. If he hadn't been afraid of using force to attack Yang Dabeo's soul, Ling Chu would have whipped him away. Seeing that Yang Dabeo was and Ling Chu still had a whip in his hand, Aunt Hu and Mrs. Huang were worried about hurting the child and wanted to remind her to be careful, but they were afraid that speaking rashly would disturb her, so they had to suppress their worries in their hearts. The puppet soul guessed Ling Chu's scruples, raised his head and said, I won't leave. What can you do to me? If you don't want to, then you can only do it by force. Ling Chu swung the Bodhi whip in his hand fiercely, and when the puppet soul was startled, the ghost exorcism talisman in his left hand quickly touched Yang Dabeo's forehead. The puppet soul realized that he had been fooled and was angry. When he was bounced away by the ghost exorcism talisman, he actually wanted to reach out and pull Yang Dabeo's soul away from his body. Ling Chu had long been on guard against him trying to do something bad, so he quickly whipped the Bodhi whip in his hand towards the arm holding Yang Dabeo. The puppet soul was in pain and subconsciously let go of Yang Dabeo. Ling Chu hurriedly attached a Requiem talisman to Yang Dabeo. While the puppet soul was still wailing, Ling Chu turned around and walked over with the Bodhi whip. I was wrong, Fairy, please forgive me, Fairy, please spare your life. The power of the Bodhi whip was so terrifying that the puppet soul was so frightened that he knelt down and begged for mercy. Tell me, where are you from? Why did you end up in Yang Dabeo's body? The puppet soul was worried about the Bodhi whip in Ling Chu's hand, and said honestly, Xiangwu, I have no bad intentions. I came from Zayajia village next door. I was seriously ill before my death, couldn't eat, and starved to death. I just wanted to borrow Yang Dabeo's money. Please eat something, it's too uncomfortable to be a starving ghost. Thanks to 854-729, Pangujenren, Swalo, Jianghu Zeju Shop, I am a pig in March, Frightened Crane, China Fuse, 201703181914308835, Pros. B.A., Loshandeo, The Universe in the Corner, Red Leaves Floating, Jam Kitten, Willow Bank, Burnt Potatoes, Waiting for You with a Smile, Chinese Soda Drink, UN1, Fairy Tales, 202110061103306337, Feng mo boy, Xia Yan, love is gone, why do you grow old, hidden red, country 114,514 class 1 protected waste, Jiangnan Fueo, Xiang, Yulaoxi, 202304281115555836, 2023-062-3439. UB, 1601121917222574, Xinhua, Lan Yunhong, Songwuping, 200908111, Mu Fengzi, Happy Lele, Xiangbuming, Ziming, Baiwajan, Dogboy, picking up the bai in the future, Zhaozil, King Shichuang Chuang, 20230306195833531, 1402121840214228, why do you grow old, Ixixi, Re 200531, the heartbeat on the left. Waiting for recommendation votes from book friends. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. May everyone's voting hands be small experts who make a fortune. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 166. Chapter 166, Kill Them. The old man's surname is Zhao and his first name is Lefu. Although he looks thin and old despite his unshaven beard, he is actually only in his 30s. My life was very tight during my lifetime, and I was reluctant to eat any good food. I always thought that when I got rich in the future, I would eat plenty of fish and meat every day. Unexpectedly, before I had any money, I was too ill to eat and starved to death. The more things you couldn't eat during your lifetime, the more you miss them. But the incense offerings that his relatives burned during the New Year and festivals simply left him unable to eat enough. Old Puppet Zhao then wandered around looking for something to eat, and was inadvertently attracted by the evil spirit of Mrs. Hu's family. I saw that her family's life was pretty good. Although they couldn't have a lot of fish and meat every day, they could still eat some meat every day. Old Puppet Zhao was reluctant to leave. He always liked to stay in Mrs. Hu's kitchen. Even if he couldn't eat the food, it was good to smell the aroma. Seeing Mrs. Hu's grandson eating so well and getting fat, Mr. Zhao was envious and jealous. When Mrs. Hu's kitchen was flooded, Yang Dabao was frightened and felt a little dumbfounded. Zhao Lo Pup accidentally discovered that his soul had fallen asleep, and he could actually contact his body. When he smelled the food Huang made for his son again, Zhao Lo Pup couldn't hold back his hunger for a moment, so he thought about using his body to prepare to enjoy the food that made him salivate. Originally, old Puppet Zhao planned to leave Yang Dabao's body after eating, but he didn't expect that no matter how much he ate, he still felt not full. He thought maybe it was because he had been hungry for too long, so he planned to have another meal before leaving. Happy greed is hard to control. The same goes for being a puppet. The more old Puppet Zhao ate, the less he wanted to leave. When he was planning to simply occupy Yang Dabao's body and live on his behalf, he didn't expect that Aunt Hu would invite a Taoist nun to her home. Ling Chu looked at old Puppet Zhao speechlessly. You want to occupy Yang Dabao's body just for a bite to eat? Aunt Hu and her daughter-in-law could not see the puppet soul. Seeing Ling Chu talking to himself in the deserted air, they felt the cold air rushing from the soles of their feet to the top of their heads. Zhao Lo Pup nodded sadly. Xiangwu, you don't know, the feeling of starvation is really uncomfortable. Ling Chu nodded and suddenly reached out and pointed at a jujube tree in the yard. Then what's going on with him? The puppet soul who was hiding behind the jujube tree was startled for a moment. He thought he was hiding tightly and the Taoist nun didn't notice it. Perhaps out of fear of being caught by Ling Chu, the puppet soul swished through the wall and floated away quickly. Ling Chu glanced at it but did not pursue it. Zhao Lao puppet hasn't finished handling it yet, and Yang Dabao is still unconscious. She can't leave the affairs of Madame Hu's family to chase the puppet soul. Zhao Lupup also had a surprised look on his face. Xiangwu, it turns out you know there is someone behind the tree. Ah, no, there is a puppet. Ling Chu glanced at him and said, when I came in, weren't you two talking? Zhao Lupup looked frustrated. It turned out that the fairy girl found their two puppet souls as soon as she came in. Tell me, who is that puppet just now, and why did he appear at Mrs. Hu's house? Ling Chu found that the puppet soul that had just floated away had not only evil aura but also a strong resentment on it. I only know that his name is Zhao Yishan, and he lives in the same village as me, but I didn't have much contact with him during his lifetime. When I came to Mrs. Hu's house, I found that he seemed to hate Huang and Yang Dabao and wanted to kill them. Fortunately, he couldn't touch them both. He should have caused the fire that day. Ling Chu frowned. It is said that puppet souls generally cannot touch things in the human world. How did he set fire to the kitchen? Zhao Lupup shook his head. I don't know the details, but when the fire broke out, I saw Zhao Yishan coming out of the kitchen, and no one else was at Mrs. Hu's house at that time. If Zhao Yishan hadn't set the fire, who else could be there? Zhao Yishan doesn't know what kind of grudge he has against Mrs. Hu's family. Ling Chu turned to ask Hu and Mr. Huang, do you know a man named Zhao Yishan? Mrs. Hu shook her head, I have never heard of this person. Huang, on the other hand, frowned. Ling Chu saw that she seemed to know something, so he simply told what old puppet Zhao said directly and let her decide whether to tell it or not. Do you have any grudge against Zhao Yishan? According to Zhao Lefu, your child, Zhao Yishan originally wanted to kill you and your child. Fortunately, he couldn't get in touch with you, so he failed. The fire that day was about he caused it? Huang was surprised. Then Zhao Yishan wants to kill me and my family's Dabao? How is this possible? What, do you know Zhao Lefu and Zhao Yishan? Hu was surprised to hear that there were two ghosts in her family, but she didn't expect that her daughter-in-law actually knew them. Could it be that this daughter-in-law had done something disrespectful to others without telling them, and this led to the two puppet souls seeking revenge? Seeing her mother-in-law's face darken, Ms. Huang quickly explained for fear of causing any misunderstanding, I don't know Zhao Lefu, but I have met Zhao Yishan twice. There was a girl named Huang Dongyun in my natal village, and I remember the man she married was named Zhao Yishan. But I am not familiar with the couple, and I only met Zhao Yishan on the day Huang Dongyun got married and returned home. Since I got married, I have never seen the couple again. When I returned to my parents' home, I heard my mother mention a few words, saying that Huang Dongyun had given birth to a daughter and a son, and her life was pretty good. Her son also had the same name as my family's eldest child. I'm not very familiar with Huang Dongyun and Zhao Yishan, let alone have any grudges. How could Zhao Yishan want to kill me and my family's treasure? Fearing that Ling Chu and Hu wouldn't believe it, Huang even made an oath. Ling first saw that she didn't look like she was lying, so it was hard to say anything more. Forget it, let's finish the affairs of Mrs. Wang's family first. Old puppet Zhao is still there. Seeing Ling Chu take out a container and take it away, Zhao Lupup suddenly knelt down and begged her, Xiangwu, are you going to hand me over to the Lord of Hell? Can you please let me? It's so uncomfortable to be a starving person. Ling Chu made a move, but did not refuse the request. If she fulfilled Zhao Lupup's wish, she would also gain merit. But Zhao Lefu is a puppet, so Ling Chu naturally cannot take him to a restaurant. He asks Yaji to take some copper coins to Hu and buy him some food from her house. Ling Chu made some spells on the food, so that Zhao Lefu would not feel hungry anymore after eating it. Zhao Lefu was so excited that he wiped away tears. He would never have to starve to death again. After this matter was settled, Ling Chu went to remove the evil spirits from the kitchen and latrine of Mrs. Hu's house, and then instructed her to find someone to rebuild it. To prevent Zhao Yishan from causing trouble again, She also left a few evil-proof charms for Aunt Hu. Aunt Hu already knew that some advantages should not be taken advantage of, so she did not dare to be dissatisfied. She offered the money with a smile on her face and sent Ling Chu out respectfully. Xiaoji drove the carriage halfway, and a woman rushed towards the carriage with a look of horror on her face. Who am I? Where am I? What happened? Yesterday, Kidian and Kia didn't even have a monthly pass. This is so unscientific. Ayo, please vote. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 167. Chapter 167. The puppet is still alive. Xiaoji was driving the carriage just fine. When he saw the woman rushing over as if she didn't care about her life, he was so frightened that he quickly stopped the reins. Xiangwu, Xiangwu. Ling Chu was sleeping soundly in the carriage when he suddenly heard a woman's voice yelling. Hey, what's the matter with you? Don't you want to die? If I hadn't caught the horse in time, you would have been disabled today. As soon as Ling Chu opened his eyes, he heard Xiaoji's dissatisfied scolding and the woman's apology. As soon as Lu Xiangju opened the car curtain, the woman outside heard the movement and immediately rushed over, shouting in surprise and joy, Xiangwu, I was just going to find you, but I didn't expect to meet you on the road. It's really, very good. Ling Chu remembered that this woman had asked her to tell her fortune. There were dead people buried under the pig pen at her home. He glanced at the other person's frightened face and said, And son, is something going on in your family again? Mr's son nodded desperately, her voice trembling, Xiangwu, my chicken died again. How did you die? Son's eyes were horrified, Xiangwu, my family there is, a puppet. My chicken's neck was twisted. Xiangwu, please, can you help me? Ling Chu sighed, how can I help? I reminded you last time to dismantle the pig pen as soon as possible and buy some incense and candles as offerings to make amends to the deceased. This is your fault. If you are unwilling to do as I say, there is no point in asking me. Son originally wanted to demolish the pig pen, but her son did not believe that there were corpses buried underneath and did not agree to demolish it. Thinking of what happened at home today, Mr's son already regretted, I listened to the fairy lady and tore down the pigsty when I got back. Can you ask Fairy Ant to help me collect that dirty thing? Ding. Requested task detected. Please host to complete the task, earn merit, and stay alive. Ling Chu put away the system and asked Sun to follow him in the carriage to show the way to Xiaoji. 15 minutes later, Ms. Sun pointed to a brick house at the end of the village and said, That's my home. As soon as he finished speaking, Mr's Sun's expression suddenly changed, Why is my house flooded? Ling Chu followed the sound and looked over, and sure enough he saw a thick smoke rising into the air. Xiaoji drove the carriage in a hurry. Sun was so anxious that as soon as the carriage stopped, she jumped out in a hurry. She didn't bother to greet Ling Chu and rushed towards her yard. Ling Chu got off the carriage and followed with two maids. The location of the fire, it seems, is the area behind Sun's house. Having not gone far, I saw many old people and children gathered around the place where the fire broke out. Those young and strong men were hurriedly carrying basins and buckets to fetch water to put out the fire. It just doesn't have much effect. The house where the fire broke out seemed to be a firewood shed, with a lot of firewood piled inside. Ling Chu could cast spells and pray for rain, but she didn't do it. First of all, she had limited energy and didn't want to waste it. Secondly, there was too much fire. The woodshed was almost burned out. It didn't matter whether the fire was saved or not. The firewood shed is separate from Mr's son's house, so the fire will not spread there. Another more important reason is that Ling Chu smelled a decaying corpse gas nearby. If she guessed correctly, a ghost appeared here just now. Cock, cluck, just as Ling Chu was looking around for the ghost, he suddenly heard the panicked cries of a group of chickens. "It's broken, my chicken!" Mrs. Sun turned pale and ran towards the chicken coop on the side. But after a few steps, she remembered the two chickens whose necks had been twisted earlier, and she couldn't help but stop. He turned around and looked at Ling Chu anxiously. "Xiangwu." Ling Chu knew what she was afraid of, so he walked over. "Let's go, I'll go with you and have a look." Some women felt strange when they heard the unusual rooster crow, and then saw Mrs. Sun with her. He followed a Taoist nun towards the chicken coop next to her, and out of curiosity, they also followed her. The chicken coop is not far away, right next to the woodshed. Through the fence, you can see at a glance a dozen chickens of various sizes, flapping their wings and running around screaming as if they were greatly frightened. On the ground, lying motionless, 5 or 6 chickens covered in blood appeared to be freshly dead. An elderly lady slapped her thigh and exclaimed, "Oh, Lotus Sun, your chicken was bitten by a weasel, right? Are there weasels in our land? Why haven't I heard of them?" Sun's face turned pale and she smiled bitterly in her heart. If it were a weasel, she wouldn't be so scared. Just as more and more women were following, a little hen suddenly seemed to have been pinched by the neck and lifted up into the air. The little hen was tightly held by the neck, and its wings and feet flapped desperately in mid-air for a few times. Then someone broke its neck with a click and threw it at Sun's feet with a bang. Seeing this strange scene, timid women and children were immediately frightened and screamed. The chickens in the fence even screamed in surprise. Seeing another little hen being lifted up into the air by its neck, Ling Chu raised his hand, pinched it, and touched it on his eyes. Ling Chu frowned when he saw the ghost of a little hen pinching the hen in mid-air with an evil look on his face. "Isn't this the puppet hiding behind the date tree at Mrs. Hu's house?" Seeing that the puppet was about to break the chicken's neck again, Ling Chu raised his voice and said, "Zhao Yishan, you have killed so many chickens, why don't you stop now?" Zhao Yishan glared over with a sinister look on his face. "These beasts were eating and in my burial place, so I killed them just in time." "Were you the one who killed the poultry in Mrs. Sun's house earlier, and the fire in the woodshed, was it also you who set the fire?" "That's right. Who asked them to build chicken coops and pig pens on my cemetery? Aunt Sun's family didn't know that your body was buried here even if they were wrong. You killed so many poultry and set fire to her woodshed. You should calm down. You can let the chicken go. Aunt Sun has agreed to demolish the chicken coop and pig pen. You don't have to worry about your cemetery being dirty in the future." This Zhao Yishan not only has an evil aura, but also a strong sense of resentment. With Ling Chu's current body, it is too troublesome to deal with him. It would be best if he could be persuaded verbally. Zhao Yishan might have thought she was lying, so Ling Chu turned to Mrs. Sun and said, "Your family built the chicken coop and pig pen on Zhao Yishan's cemetery. It's indeed your fault. You'd better find someone to tear it down as soon as possible." Sun was confused. "Xiangwu, whose cemetery are you talking about?" "Zhao Yishan." Ling Chu saw that her expression was wrong and asked strangely, "It's Zhao Yishan. Is there anything wrong?" Sun's son Datang had just finished putting out the fire and hurried over. He happened to hear Ling Chu's words and immediately said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? Zhao Yishan is alive and well. I knew you, a Taoist nun, were here cheating." Ling Chu raised his eyebrows. Is Sun's son saying, "Is that puppet still alive?" Thanks to the boy who loves reading historical novels for the reward of 300 starting coins, and to the Marmalade Kitten for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thanks to WX Yangmei's monthly ticket support. Thanks to Crystal at Diamond, Pros. BA 20230601621658 202303061958333531 20090811 Pigs on a sunny day, why do they grow old? Don't cry, make trouble, or show off. China Fuse, even cats and mice don't play. Doctor, Ixixi, pick a pen to see the future. Yangliu Bank. Yangliu and Zeng 854729. Heartbeat on the left, Small Fish, China Fuse, Boy Who Loves Reading Historical Novels, Jiangnan Fueo, White Clouds L in the Sky, Kingsha Makeup, 202306261108181880. 201703181914308335. I can't think of any book friends such as Ming Dynasty and the Swallow Returning to the South who would vote for it. Thanks to Red Sleeve Book Friends for their support. Thanks to Xiaoxiang Book Friends for their support. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 168. Chapter 168 Killed by his wife. Seeing that Zhao Datang didn't look like he was lying, Ling Chu couldn't help but turned his head and asked son, Zhao Yishan is still alive? Yes, I haven't heard that Zhao Yishan is dead. His home is nearby. If he is dead, there is no way I wouldn't know about it. You, Taoist nun, are you mistaken? I heard from Zhao Yishan's wife yesterday that Zhao Yishan shipped a batch of goods to the south and has not come back yet. If Zhao Yishan died, his family would definitely hold a funeral. How could we neighbors not know about it? This is strange. Zhao Yishan has clearly become a puppet. The neighbors didn't know anything about it? What went wrong? Ling Chu raised his head and asked the puppet still holding the chicken's neck floating in the air, your name is Zhao Yishan? Do you remember where you live, who are your relatives at home, and how did you die? The puppet said with a gloomy face, I am Zhao Yishan, I. Ling Chu was waiting to hear what was going on, but Zhao Yishan suddenly stared in the direction of the woodshed with a ferocious expression. What did you see? Why did the evil spirit on your body suddenly surge? Ling Chu was wondering when he saw Zhao Yishan flying towards the woodshed with a swish. At the other end of the woodshed, 3 women were walking towards us with gossipy faces. It seemed they had heard what was going on at MRS Sun's house and came to watch the excitement. There were also 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls, and 5 children bouncing behind. Zhao Yishan's puppet soul was full of resentment and rushed towards the woman in colorful clothes walking on the left. He opened his hands and wanted to strangle her neck. Just as Ling Chu was about to stop her, he saw that Zhao Yishan was pushed away by a strong force before he even touched the woman's body. It seems that the woman has something on her body that can ward off evil spirits and ward off evil spirits. Ling Chu originally thought that Zhao Yishan could only give up since he couldn't touch the woman. Unexpectedly, he got up from the ground, glared at the woman with resentment, and suddenly rushed towards the children behind him, lifting the youngest boy among them and floating him into the air. The child was stunned for a moment, struggling and crying loudly. Dabeo, Dabeo. Upon hearing the child's cry, the woman in colorful clothes screamed and rushed over. But the child was lifted up and slipped into the air, and the woman couldn't reach it at all. Zhao Yishan stared at her with resentment and shouted angrily, Bitch, you will not die well, I will let you all be buried with me. But the woman in colorful clothes did not hear his words. She only shouted in panic to everyone to help her save the child. The people present could not see the puppet soul, but when they saw the child floating strangely in mid-air, they huffed and surrounded him. Aunt Sun was so shocked that she couldn't even care about her chickens. Xiang, why do I look at Zhao Dabeo as if he was caught by someone? Did that dirty thing catch him? Can you save him? Come down. Ling Chu frowned and sighed, what on earth is Zhao Yishan going to do? Is he forcing her to do it? You can't watch your children get into trouble in front of you. Even though the onlookers wanted to save the child, Zhao Yishan didn't give them a chance at all, and instead lifted the child higher. Everyone was at a loss what to do, and finally realized something was wrong. Why did they feel that Zhao Dabeo had been caught? Could there be a puppet? While he was in a state of shock and confusion, he found MRS Sun walking over with a Taoist nun. Ling Chu carried the Bodhi whip and followed Sun to the front of the crowd, Zhao Yishan, put the child down. If you have any grievances, just tell them and I can help you. Before Ling Chu finished speaking, Zhao Yishan pointed at the woman in colorful clothes with an excited expression. I want that to die. She was the one who killed me. I want her to be buried with me. Is this woman the one who killed you? But the child is innocent, let him go first. This must die too. After persuading him for a while, Zhao Yishan was unwilling to put the child down. Ling Chu wanted to take action, but it was obvious that Zhao Yishan's hand was holding the back of the child's neck and he was hesitant. The evil aura on his body had turned into reality. Ling Chu was worried that if he took action, it would stimulate him to twist the child's neck at all costs. Ling Chu frowned and asked the woman in colorful clothes, "Did you kill Zhao Yishan?" The woman in flower clothes was looking anxiously at the child in mid-air. When she heard Ling Chu's words, a flash of panic flashed in her eyes. Finding that Ling Chu was looking at her, the woman immediately shouted angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about, Taoist nun? Get out of the way quickly, I want to save the child." Sun frowned and pulled Ling Chu's sleeve. "Xiangwu, are you mistaken? How could Huang Dongyun kill Zhao Yishan?" A woman next to her frowned and said dissatisfied, "Where does this Taoist nun come from? She is just talking nonsense here. How could Huang Dongyun kill her husband? Besides, Zhao Yishan is still alive and well." Ling Chu was surprised. It turned out that the woman in colorful clothes was Zhao Yishan's daughter-in-law, Huang Dongyun. Zhao Yishan was actually killed by his own wife? Ling Chu always felt that something was wrong. Pointing to the child in mid-air, he asked, "And son, is that child Huang Dongyun's son?" A woman interrupted her impatiently, "What on earth do you want to say? Who doesn't know that Zhao Dabao is the son of Huang Dongyun and Zhao Yishan?" Ling Chu's brows furrowed, saying that a tiger's poison cannot eat its seeds. If Zhao Yishan was killed by his wife Huang Dongyun, it would not be surprising that Zhao Yishan wanted her to pay with her life, but why did he not even let his own child go? Xiaozhi couldn't help but get angry when he saw this woman always interrupting his girl's words. "We are not from your Zayajia village. We don't know the identity of the child. What's weird about it?" The round-faced woman choked, unable to refute Xiaozhi's words. Huang Dongyun looked at Ling Chu with a look of surprise and uncertainty, wondering how she knew that Zhao Yishan was dead. Panic made her want to leave this place, but the child was not saved and she couldn't leave even if she wanted to. "Okay, it's important to save people. You, a Taoist nun, should quickly cast a spell and save the child." Ling Chu ignored the man who urged her, but said to Sun, "And Sun, tear down your chicken coop and pig pen, and dig out Zhao Yishan's body." She didn't know how Huang Dongyun managed to kill Zhao Yishan without telling everyone. Since no one believed that Zhao Yishan was dead, they had no choice but to dig out his body first. Originally, the Sun family did not believe that there were people buried under the chicken coops and pig pens, but accidents happened again and again in the family, and they no longer wanted to keep the chicken coops and pig pens. "I was just about to ask my neighbors to help me and demolish the chicken coop and pig pen." Huang Dongyun wiped away tears in front of everyone. "Please, can you help me save the child first?" Some people saw that Zhao Dabao was still struggling and couldn't bear it. "Taoist nun, it's more important to save people. It's better to save the child first." Ling Chu knew that Huang Dongyun's intention to save the children was sincere, but she wanted to stop everyone's corpses from being dug up. She simply summoned a shovel and small hammer from the system. Big shovel and small hammer. Dear readers, would you like to see us demonstrate our smashing skills to you? 10 tickets are worth a hammer. You have the final say on how many hammers to hit. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 169. Everyone present looked at Ling Chu eagerly, waiting for her to take action to save Zhao Dabao. No one noticed that a big shovel and a small hammer appeared above the chicken coop. Huang Dongyun was secretly annoyed when he saw Ling Chu standing still and not helping anyone, but his face showed aggrievement. Xiang, why don't you save people? Do you want to collect money first? Ling Chu glanced at Mr. Huang lightly, said nothing, but raised his hand and waved. The small hammer immediately hit the roof of the chicken coop. Boom! There was a loud noise and everyone was startled. They all turned around and saw a big hole in Sun's chicken coop. Huang Dongyun's eyelids twitched when he saw the chicken coop with a big hole in it. He quickly took out a piece of silver from his sleeve pocket and handed it over. Xiang, I will give you the silver, but can you help me save my son first? You Taoist nun, you really have an eye for money. Ling Chu glanced at the silver, raised his hand and waved again. Snapped. The big shovel flew over and slapped the pig pen hard. The wall collapsed instantly. Fear spread from the soles of her feet to the top of her head. Huang quickly took out another banknote and knelt down in front of Ling Chu with a bang. Xiang, your magic is so good, please save my son first, and then drag it on, he's going to die. Ling Chu ignored her and turned to look at Zhao Yishan. He didn't know if he saw the big shovel and the small hammer, but he was worried. He was not grabbing Zhao Dabao's neck, but his shoulders. Zhao Dabao may have a child's mind. After the initial panic, he found that there was no danger, and now he stared at the shovel and hammer with curiosity. Others also found that Zhao Dabao seemed to be in no danger, but he just couldn't get off. In addition, I finally discovered that this Taoist nun's magic was unusual, so I didn't dare to say anything anymore. Ling Chu felt relieved when he saw that Zhao Dabao was not in danger. He controlled the small hammer and the big shovel, hitting with the hammer on the left and the shovel on the right. After a ping ping pong pong sound, the chicken coop and pig pen have been raised to the ground. Huang was so shocked that she felt dizzy. She subconsciously wanted to run away, but when she saw that the child was still in the air, she couldn't help herself. Huang prayed in her heart that the Taoist nun would stop after tearing down the chicken coop and pig pen. She bit the tip of her tongue hard to calm herself down, and tried her best to comfort herself. Zhao Yishan had been dead for more than a year, and maybe there was only a pile of bones left. Who could recognize him? So what if she was dug out? As long as she insists that her husband has not returned from transporting goods to the south, this Taoist nun can't do anything to her. With this luck, Huang did not leave. After the chicken coop and pig pen were dismantled, Ling Chu simply stopped working and continued to work. First, he controlled the shovel and shoveled aside the removed masonry and mud blocks in twos and twos. Then turn on the system, scan the specific location of Zhao Yishan's body, and prepare to excavate. The big shovel compensated by the system is not only big, but also extremely sharp. Zhao Yishan's body was not buried very deep. Ling Chu controlled the shovel and dug it out in a few strokes. Hu and her family were in disbelief when they saw that there were indeed corpses buried in their property. But it's actually not to blame that they didn't find Zhao Yishan's body. After all, the land was still some distance away from Hu's house. The land here originally belonged to the village. Hu's family only came here to build a house half a year ago. When they first built the house and laid the foundation, they did not dig here. Although firewood sheds, chicken coops, and pig pens were later built here, because they were not for human habitation, they were built casually and no deep foundations were laid. So I never found out that there was still a dead person buried underneath. Seeing the white bones exposed in the soil, Huang was delighted. That high-hanging heart finally fell to the ground, the tension on his face disappeared, and he returned to his previous softness. Ling Chu controlled the shovel and shoveled away all the soil around the body before stopping. Zhao Yishan's body was buried without a coffin. It was just a pit dug and randomly buried in the ground. More than a year has passed, and now only a set of white bones remains. No one present knew who this was. But someone suddenly shouted, "Zhao Jianghai is here." A man in his late 40s hurriedly squeezed in from outside the crowd. As soon as Zhao Yishan's ghost saw this man, he couldn't help but reach out and wipe away his tears. Zhao Jianghai is his eldest brother. It turned out that someone came to Zhao Jianghai's house and told him that his second brother Zhao Yishan had been killed. At first, Zhao Jianghai didn't believe it, but it was obvious that the man had a nose and an eye for what he said. In addition, he remembered that Zhao Yishan had not returned after the agreed time, so he was worried and decided to come over to see what happened. Zhao Jianghai was confused when he saw what he dug out was a set of white bones. He couldn't tell who it was. But he quickly remembered that his second brother wore a jade ring on his left index finger. Even though he was a little frightened when he saw the bones, Zhao Jianghai still had the courage to turn over the left hand of the corpse. Seeing his action, Huang Dongyun's legs went weak. Why did she forget the jade ring? Zhao Jianghai moved the soil away from the left hand of the corpse in a few times. When he saw the familiar ring finger, Zhao Jianghai burst into tears. Second brother. Just after crying a few times, he suddenly remembered that the messenger said that Zhao Yishan was killed by his wife. Zhao Jianghai turned around and wanted to question Huang Dongyun. He saw Huang staggering towards the corpse and crying bitterly, "It's impossible, it's impossible, I don't believe it. Master, how could you cruelly abandon us orphans and widowed mothers? How can you let us live?" Seeing Huang Dongyun crying so miserably, Zhao Jianghai swallowed back his questioning words. He knew that his second brother had always liked this Mr. Huang, and it was impossible for Mr. Huang to kill him. "Huang Dongyun, how did your husband Zhao Yishan die?" Ms. Huang felt uneasy. She didn't know how the Taoist nun could know that Zhao Yishan was dead and where he was buried. I don't know why the master died suddenly. He obviously shipped a batch of goods to sell in the south. Master, why are you so cruel to abandon us? How do you expect me and my 2 children to survive in the future? Seeing Huang crying so sadly, Ling Chu smiled sarcastically. If she hadn't known the truth of the matter, she might have believed her lies just like Zhao Jianghai. "Zhao Jianghai, turn the body over and check it." Although he didn't know what Gu meant by this, Zhao Jianghai still turned the bones over. Zhao Jianghai felt a chill in his heart when he saw the dagger embedded in the bone. His second brother was indeed killed. Wang's heart tightened. How could she have forgotten this thing in her panic? Zhao Jianghai noticed that there seemed to be words engraved on the dagger. He took a closer look and gritted his teeth and said, "Zhao Dingke." At this time, a man hurriedly walked over from outside the crowd. He suddenly heard Zhao Jianghai's gritted words, his face changed, and he immediately turned around and left quietly. Zhao Yishan's puppet soul swooped towards the man. Thanks to Blue Planet's Feng, Jiangnan Fueyao and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks for writing about the future, Zeng, Why We Grow Old, Prose. B.A., Stomachache, Noisy, Yang Luan, 2023052174210, Don't Cry, Don't Make Trouble, Don't Show Off. 0808292220201017. 201703181914308335. The White Clouds in the Sky Elthro, 854-729. The book friends who were hacked kept checking in again. 200908111, Neither Cat Nor Mouse Can Play, Pigs on a Sunny Day, Re 200531, Wind of Blue Planet. Mimi Yang 98, 202306016211658. 20230306195833531, Prose. B.A., Kingsha Lian Zhuang and other book friends recommendation votes support. Thanks to Hungziu and all the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 170. The gentle-looking man outside the crowd had just come over. Hearing Zhao Jianghai's hateful words, he guessed that things had changed and immediately wanted to turn around and leave quietly before anyone noticed his arrival. Zhao Yishan's ghost found the man and immediately rushed toward him full of resentment. But before he could touch the man's body, he was bounced away by an invisible gas. Zhao Yishan fell to the ground in embarrassment. The Zhao Dabao he was holding in his hand also let out an ouch and fell to the ground. He immediately cried out in pain. Zhao Dabao's cry attracted everyone's attention. Huang Dongyun turned around and saw her son falling to the ground. Then she saw her brother Zhao happen to be nearby. She was so surprised that she blurted out without thinking too much, "Brother Cai, save me quickly, son." Zhao Dingke was about to leave quietly when he suddenly heard the familiar cry of a child and subconsciously stopped. But before he could make any other moves, he heard Huang Dongyun's words. Suddenly, she panicked and glared at Huang Dongyun, who was still kneeling next to the corpse. Her eyes were asking her if she was crazy. Seeing his eyes, Huang Dongyun realized what he had said in a hurry. Zhao Jianghai stared at Huang Dongyun in disbelief. What did he hear? This sister-in-law actually called Zhao Dingke brother Cai. Moreover, let him save his son? Whose son should I save? Huang Dongyun felt her heart skip a beat when she saw everyone's suspicious looks. But when she saw Zhao Dabao lying on the ground crying, she didn't think much about it and quickly got up from the ground and rushed towards her son. And Huang Dongyun's words of brother Cai and son made Zhao Yishan mad with hatred. Seeing that she wanted to rush over to save Zhao Dabao, he immediately floated over, grabbed Zhao Dabao's arm, and lifted him up. Huang Dongyun was halfway running when he saw his son rising up into the air again. In a hurry, he shouted to Zhao Dingke without thinking, "Save your son quickly." Zhao Dingke also noticed that Zhao Dabao seemed to be being grabbed and flew into the air, and subconsciously wanted to go up and him back. However, Huang Dongyun's words and everyone's increasingly suspicious eyes were like two nails that hit his feet hard. The ground was nailed to the spot, unable to move. Zhao Dingke wanted to save his son, but he didn't dare. His emotions of anxiety, worry, and fear were mixed together, and he was so anxious that he broke out in cold sweat. Huang Dongyun finally ran over, but Zhao Dabao had been lifted into the air by Zhao Yishan again. Zhao Jianghai originally thought that Huang Dongyun was worried about Zhao Dabao's safety, and he shouted in a hurry that he was wrong. However, Huang Dongyun asked Zhao Dingke to save his son twice in a row, and his suspicions grew. Seeing that Zhao Yishan's puppet soul choked Zhao Dabao's neck out of resentment, Ling Chu took advantage of the fact that his attention was on the child and quietly threw a holding charm on him. He then used the Bodhi whip to wrap up Zhao Dabao and rescue him. Zhao Yishan couldn't move, staring at Ling Chu with resentful eyes. Ling Chu ignored it. She saved Zhao Dabao because the child was innocent after all, but she would not let the murderers Huang and Zhao Dingke continue to be at large. And Ling Chu finally knew why Zhao Yishan attacked Zhao Dabao. "Huang, what did you just say? Whose son did you ask Zhao Dingke to save?" The people present looked back and forth between Zhao Dingke and Huang Dongyun. Mr. Huang actually shouted so affectionately to Zhao Dingke and asked him to save his son. Could it be that these two people are secretly having an affair? Zhao Dingke didn't know who the Taoist nun was, so he glared secretly and turned away, but calmly motioned to Mr. Huang not to talk nonsense. Hearing Ling Chu's question, Huang panicked for a moment, but quickly calmed down again, secretly hating this Taoist nun for meddling in other people's business. "I was just an impatient child and didn't pay attention for a moment." "Really, you shouted so affectionately to an outsider, and those who didn't know better thought he was the child's biological father and you were the family Mrs. Huang secretly pinched her palm and wiped the handkerchief. She burst into tears and said, "What do you think of this Taoist nun? She obviously has magic, but she is so cruel and unwilling to save the child. I have no enmity with you, why do you want to wrong me? Zhao Dingke glared at Ling Chu with a gloomy face. Please, this Taoist nun, please pay attention to your words and deeds. A woman's reputation is so important, how can you speculate so casually? The relationship between me and Mr. Huang is completely innocent. She was just worried about the safety of her child and didn't pay attention to her words and deeds for a while. Why should Taoist nuns hold on to such a trivial matter? Heh, what a clean person. Let alone Ling Chu not believing it, even Zhao Jianghai was suspicious. He asked Mr. Huang with a sullen face and a cold voice, let me ask you, whose child is Dabao? Also, how did the second brother die? Huang was panicked, but her face was aggrieved. Brother, what do you mean? Dabao is of course my and Yishan's child. As for how he died, I really don't know. He was clearly with me at the beginning. He said he was going to transport a batch of goods to the south to sell, but I didn't know he was lying to me. In order to prevent Zhao Jianghai from asking further questions, Huang wiped away her tears and cried to him softly, Brother, you know that Yishan and I have never blushed or had a quarrel. Zhao Jianghai was not distracted by Huang, and stared at Huang coldly. Then tell me, what's going on with this dagger? He suspected that this younger brother and sister had an affair with that Zhao Dingke. The second brother might have been killed by them after discovering their adultery. Brother, I really don't know, I thought Yishan was still in the south, how did I know that something happened to him? Oh wow, you are so cruel. The boss, the children are still so young, what do you want me to do in the future? Seeing that Huang couldn't say a few words and started crying again, Zhao Jianghai turned his head with a dark face and said, Zhao Dingke, you bastard, you actually killed my second brother, come on, you come with me to see the official. Zhao Jianghai, don't slander anyone, I have never killed your second brother. You still dare to deny that your name is engraved on this dagger. Do you think I am blind? Just because the name is engraved doesn't mean that the dagger belongs to me, it must be the person who killed Zhao Yishan and deliberately framed me. Zhao Dingke regretted so much that he had forgotten the dagger in his panic, but he was even more annoyed with Huang because he didn't expect that the dagger she gave him had a name engraved on it. Ms. Huang was also very upset. When she bought the dagger on a whim, she asked the craftsman to carve her name on it, so that Zhao Dingke could always remember her feelings for him. The night she gave the dagger, Zhao Dingke took one look at it and put it aside, and then the two of them began to fall in love with each other. Unexpectedly, it was such a coincidence that Zhao Yishan, who came back early, bumped into him. During the fight, Zhao Dingke grabbed the dagger and stabbed it. Thinking of this, Wang's face suddenly turned pale. Oops, why did she forget the hairpin? Yesterday, I was chatting with the author next door about the number of monthly votes he had received. I didn't know why, but he insisted on competing with me to see who had received more monthly votes. PK time is, today and tomorrow. The bet is a spicy stick. Dear friends, whether you can win this spicy stick depends on your support. Carrot carrot.